Let me give you the most essential goal to search for, seek for, try for. What makes everything worthwhile, whether you sell or whether you're a clerk in a store, the most important thing in life is what you become. The most important thing in life is what you become. What you get is really secondary. And we're going to talk about techniques on how to do better so that you get more, but the real purpose of activity is for personal development. The major question to ask is not what are you getting. The major question to ask is what are you becoming? That is primary. And a big share of you have chosen sales career, and that's going to help you with economics. But regardless of what you do, the major question is what are you becoming? I've also discovered this. Income does not usually far exceed personal development. Income and personal development go together. You can learn some techniques, but unless you really personally change, the techniques probably aren't going to do that much good. Here's the big challenge of life. You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. And on the negative side it reads, unless you change how you are, you'll always have what you got. Life has some strange ways. If somebody hands you $1 million, best you become a millionaire quickly so you get to keep the money. Otherwise, sure enough, it'll find strange ways of disappearing. Somebody once said if you took all the money in the world, divided it up equally among everybody, it would soon all be back in the same pocket. Now let me give you a good phrase. Most of what we have attracted by the person we have become. Most of what we have attracted. So to attract more, you must become more. Back in my early experience, I wondered why some people did so much better than others. Why would two people work for the same company, one make $1,000 a month, the other one make $2,000? Why would one person do twice as well, speaking economically? Now, I know there's more than one way to do well, I understand that. But why would one person make $1,000 a month, another person make $2,000? Maybe somebody else make $3,000. Same company, same product, same service. I had this big question back then. What is the difference between $1,000 and $2,000 a month income? And I don't mean $1,000 a month. That I could figure out. But why would one person do twice as well, 3 times as well? That's an interesting question. Back then I thought, well, some people do better because they have more time. Trying to figure it out in my faulty reasoning back then. I said, Harold ought to be able to do well. He's got a lot of time. If I had all of Harold's time, I could do well. Now that's got to be dumb, right? Number one, you can't get somebody else's time. And a man said to me once, he said, you know, if I had some extra time, I could make some extra money. I said, well, then you've got to let it pass. There isn't any extra time. When the clock strikes 12 midnight, that about wraps it up. You can look around the gongs there for a little more, but it's over. You say to the guy, what are you doing? He says, I'm looking for extra time. See, they'll come take you away. Right? There isn't any more time. Well, if you can't get more time, what could you get that would make a difference in personal income, personal results from enterprise, from activity? If you can't get more time, what could you get? Here's the key word. Just make a simple note. The word is called value. And we're going to discuss this today, value. And I've got a little phrase for you. It reads, value makes the difference in results. Value makes the difference in results. You can't get more time, but you can become more valuable. Now here's the first lesson of economics. Everybody should study this from the time we're kids. Old enough to understand what a dollar is, how to get one, what to do with it. Here's the first law of economics. We primarily get paid for value, bringing value to the marketplace, goods and services. Now I know it takes time to bring value to the marketplace, but you don't get paid for the time. You get paid for the value. The man says, well, I make about $10 an hour. No, not for the hour. If that was true, you could just stay home and have them send your money. Right? You don't get paid for the hour. You get paid for the value you put in an hour. Right? If you're working for wages, you get paid for the value in the hour. The hour is simply a way of measuring the value. Okay, so we don't get paid for time, we get paid for value. Now, since that's true, bringing value to the marketplace is a way to earn money. Here's the key question. Is it possible to become twice as valuable and make twice as much money in the same time? Good question. Is it possible to become 3 times as valuable and make 3 times as much money in the same time? The answer is yes, if. And it's always if, right? Life is known as the big if. One of the presidents of my country once said, life is iffy. How true. The big if. And here's the big if. We're going to consider it today. It's a part of our whole program, and it simply reads, if. You can do better if you make the changes. If you work on yourself. Mr. Schiff gave me probably the greatest clue he ever gave me. He said, Mr. Rohn, learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job or your prospect. Learn to work harder on yourself. When he said that, I suddenly understood why I was broke. I was a hard worker. Age 25. I don't think anybody could outwork me. I was a hard worker. If anybody would have asked me, Mr. Rohn, are you a hard worker? I'd have said, yes, check my record. I'm a hard worker. I work as hard as anybody. And that was correct. But see, that was one of my problems. I was working hard on my job, but I wasn't working hard on myself. And that was my reason for lack of progress. Many people look for more money, but they look for it in the wrong direction. The guy says, I need more money. I'm going to go work on my boss. Well, good luck. I found most managers are notorious. They don't play fast and loose with the company till. I've never seen a manager get excited and triple somebody's wages. I mean, they don't behave in such an irrational manner. So see, that's not what you work on. Some people say, well, I'll go on and strike for more. Well, try that if you want. The problem with that game is you've always got to strike. And I'll tell you what you get by demand. Little bitty pieces. Barely enough. Well, now inflation beats that game, right? Guy demands 10%. Inflation's 12. He's behind, too. It never ends. Now, you can get by, crust of bread and a pair of shoes, but we're talking success today, not getting by. The guy in sales says, I know what I'll do. I'll get me some of those books that teach you the tricky sales. And I'll go leap upon my prospects, dazzle them with my sales footwork, grab their money before they know what's happened. Well, you can try those tricks if you want to. My observation shows you wind up at the bottom of the economic ladder, not the top. See, it's not what you get by tricks. It's not what you get by demand. It's what you get by performance that counts. So key phrase for your notes today. It's performance that counts. And I've discovered performance comes from inside, not outside. For a big share of my life, I kept looking for the answers to do well outside, found out they were inside. And one of the biggest clues my teacher gave me in those early days when I was 25 years old, I was giving him a little rundown one day how things hadn't worked out well for me. He said, Jim, I've got an answer for you if you will listen carefully. So listen carefully, I did. Here's what he said. He said, Mr. Rohn, I've only known you a short time, but he said, it's my honest opinion that for things to change for you, you've got to change. That wasn't quite the answer I was looking for, but that's the answer he gave me. And I pass it along to you 25 years later. On this summer day, it reads, for you, for things to change for you, you've got to change. You'll just take that back and forget all the rest. I think the seminar would be worthwhile. For things to change for you, you've got to change. Otherwise, it isn't going to change. Not for you. Before I met Mr. Schoaf, I used to say, I sure hope things will change. Right? That seemed to be my only hope. If it isn't going to change, I'm in serious trouble. Then I found out it isn't going to change, so I'm in serious trouble. But see, it isn't going to change. I did a lecture one time for Standard Oil, big corporation in my country, Standard Oil executives and management, in Honolulu. And we're talking economics one day around this big conference table. One of them said to me, Mr. Rohn, you know some fairly important people halfway around the world. What do you think the 80s are going to be like? I said, gentlemen, I do know the right people. I can tell you. So they all listened very carefully. I said, gentlemen, based on the people I know and my own experience, it is my opinion, in the 80s, it's going to be about like it's always been. Aren't you glad you came? That's inside. I don't pass that around just everywhere. Now, of course, I said that to make a point, but I also said it because it's accurate. It's going to be about like it's always been. It isn't going to change. The tide comes in, and then what? It goes out. For the last 6,500 years that we know of, called recorded history, and probably long before that. So it isn't going to change. It gets light, and then what? It turns dark. 6,500 years. We're not to be startled by that anymore. If the sun goes down, the guy says, what's happened? What's happened? It means he hasn't been here long, I guess. Come on. About this time. There are some things you don't want to show your naivety. Someone says, do you know what's happening these days? They never read their history books. So even if you're startled, try not to show it.